Welcome to Marriage, Let's Talk, hosted by legendary worldwide marriage encounter leader, Father Rosy Rosebrough, featuring Catholic married couples from around the world who demonstrate healthy communication for building better marriages. And now, here's Father Rosy.
Hi, Father Rosy here. I'm glad you could join us today. This podcast is not talking about marriage. It is where we're going to share how to create a better marriage through communicating feelings in authentic ways. There they are. Welcome to John and Zoe.
Hello.
How was your Easter?
It was good.
Pretty busy, but good.
Yeah.
How was yours?
Did you go to an early mass or did you go to a late mass or
At 8 a.m. with our kids, yeah.
is that the one you normally go to?
We're still kind of hop around trying to find the best time for them. So
Yeah, you never know how Zeke's gonna wake up. And if he wakes up rough, then we're going to a later mass.
How did the kids go at mass? How were they behaving? Pretty good?
yeah, I mean they did okay last weekend, yeah.
Yeah, for the most part, they've gotten a little bit better. We've also gotten better about trying to bring all three of them. That temptation to leave the little one at grandma is still pretty high.
Yep.
But I think it's good for the older ones to have him there too. So, and it's good for him and us.
The Easter egg hunt afterwards, the mass, or just before the day, or later in the after?
Yeah, they had one after mass and then a couple others at their grandparents' houses too that day. So lots of eggs. Yeah.
Is it all plastic eggs now? Nobody hides real eggs?
No, we all had plastic eggs. We still hard boiled eggs and they decorate them, but we just eat them now. We don't hide them.
The temptation to throw them at each other is much too high.
Yeah.
They have out at Innsbruck, they have a dog Easter egg hunt.
Oh.
And I've never seen one. I was playing pickleball at the time, at Saturday before Easter, 2 weeks before, I guess. And they put the dog treats in the plastic eggs.
Oh.
Some dogs just stay at the entrance of wherever they just start from and just sit down. The other dogs who know better will go, they hold part of the egg with one paw. They start slapping the sucker until it comes out, the treat. Then once they got that, I probably put dog food smell all over the eggs, just let them go flying.
Raw meat.
Raw meat, yes, out of the can. But they do beautifully do that. They said they go out some dogs get a lot of eggs. They know how to open them suckers up so fast. So
I love it.
yeah, and they always with our family, we always would lose one or two or three. You hide them so well that the kids, and you can't remember how many eggs are out there anyway. You count them beforehand, but then you forget how many they found versus how many are still out there. And by 4 or 5 months later, you find eggs middle of summer, one of these trees, And that was a real egg. We wouldn't have these plastic eggs right
yeah.
now.
That'd be rough to find later.
Yes. But what have you chosen for this evening?
Our topic is what can we do to spend more quality time together, and what do I commit to achieve it?
Okay.
Want me to read?
Yeah, you go first.
Dear John, quality time has been rare. Our kids and our jobs consume most of our time and our energy. We have been getting a lot of family time lately with the spring break trip, but not a lot of quality time, just the two of us. I dream of a weekend away with you, but I think a weekly at-home date night with our kids when our kids go to bed might be more doable. I'm so exhausted by 9 p.m. I want to go right to sleep. But I think we could put our kids to bed right at 8 and do something weekly. So I commit to putting it on the calendar, getting everything ready for the next day before bedtime, and planning some quick, easy date nights for us to do together. When I think about quality time together, I feel lonely. We don't get a lot of time, just the two of us, and I miss you. We're exhausted and busy. And I think that if we plan date nights or have one or two, we'll still like not get in a routine of doing it and stop for a while just with the busyness of life. My lonely feeling is an 8 on a 10-point scale. It's like a kid sitting alone at lunch. My lonely feeling is like a social anxiety, wanting to be included but too anxious to go somewhere. My feeling is like a pit in my stomach or when you're about to cry. If my feeling were a color, it would be blue, like sad. I miss the connection we had when we got to spend so much time together, enjoying just being together. I love you.
Thank you. Dear wife, when I think about ways we can spend more quality time together, it really strikes me that it's the quality of the time and not just the time. So how can we make the most of the time that we have together to make it us and not just the two of us who happen to be in the same place at the same time? I think being present is a big thing for both of us, but especially me. It can be hard to let go of the struggles of the day and the concerns that we have for the kids we serve as teachers. I know I don't always bring the best of me home after a long day, struggling with the kids who are harder to reach and who probably need a little bit more love and attention than they get at home. I'm worn out and my temper is short and my energy is low. It makes me feel defeated. It's a gray color, like the storm clouds that bring a huge rain, because I can't help but see them through the eyes of dread and anxiety from those times that our basement flooded with raw sewage. It was really gross. Um, it's an 8.5 on a 10 scale. But after taking a few deep breaths, I commit myself to doing things that will help me leave the things at the door when I get home. Things like trying to do more paperwork during the day, taking the drive home to de-stress, and to let go of the things that I'm not in control of anyway. I commit to setting the phone aside and just living in the moment. It makes me feel shameful, but also filled with hope. It feels like looking at people who are more concerned about getting that perfect picture than they are about just having a good memory or a good time. The hope feels like that light bulb moment when a student, uh, when an idea really clicks for a student, and they get excited because the answer is now so obvious to them. The answer seems so much more obvious now after writing this. Oh, and also, I will commit to taking my ADHD medicine. I love you. Oh.
I think it's interesting we like took it different ways. Like we both want to spend more time together. I'm like trying to find ways to create more time, like just us, and you took it more like being present in the time. That's interesting.
Yeah, I know, like we both talked about teaching because obviously that's a huge part of our lives, and how um you had a more negative side about the kid sitting alone at lunch, and then mine was the light bulb moment. And I think sometimes that can be how we view our days when we get home. It can be that lonely feeling, or it can be that excited feeling, and it really depends upon how we choose to approach it. Um, Trying to remember what you said. Your lonely feeling, um, and how you miss being together, just the two of us.
I think just like, I mean, like I know we are together, like physically together a lot, like in the same room or like doing the same things, like near each other. Like we do appreciate the fact that we can just like coexist with each other. We've talked about that, but I think just like that carefree time of being able to just like enjoy being in each other's presence where we don't feel that anymore with kids very often. Because even like at 9 p.m. I'm exhausted going to sleep or we're dealing with like getting kids water and snacks and I like miss that time that we'd have to worry about anything else, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely been a lot harder to focus on us, um, with 3 kids now.
Outnumbered.
I think back to like when we had JP and we would just JP, I guess, and we would do things more us, and we'd like he'd come, but it was focused on us and not him. And now I feel like anytime we do things, it's focused on the kids and how we can get the kids to enjoy things instead of us enjoying things, like, and enjoying the things the kids are doing.
Yeah. For sure.
That and making sure the kids don't kill themselves. Constant stressor there.
So do you think we could do like a combination of like our ideas, basically, like trying to be more present, but like trying to have time set aside? Like, what are you thinking?
I think we definitely need to figure out like the best way to like be present together at the same time, and whether that's, we set that hour or so aside to pray together, to even lay in bed and watch an episode of something together. I know we
I always fall asleep.
always we used to watch a couple shows together, and now even that's like you're reading a book and I'm reading something, or the TV's on and one of us is on the phone looking at something and trying to figure out what we're going to do tomorrow or plan. And
Answering emails. And,
yeah, it's like we're constantly busy and we just need to almost like unplug from the world for just a little bit every night even. I think that would,
I like that.
yeah, you probably like the unplug. I'm bad about being on my phone, I will admit it, because I use it for everything. It's my computer, my phone. I use it to read books, just everything. It's a really convenient tool, but also a very slippery slope when it comes to time and quality time. I know we both mentioned anxiety. How do you think anxiety really plays a part when it comes to?
I think like when we're anxious about our jobs, for sure, like, or for me anyway, and like the sensory overload part of anxiety, like I don't want to hang out with you at 9 p.m. I want to go to sleep. Like I'm just tired, I'm overwhelmed. Like I'm just done for the day. And even after school, like we're both just like kind of anxious and overwhelmed about everything going on. So I think it makes it hard for us to enjoy that time together. And even if we're like arguing, it's because we're anxious or like overwhelmed.
Yeah, how we respond to anxiety, I've really come to see we respond completely differently. You tend to get really tired and sleep, and I can't focus on anything else. It's like a hyper focus on that aspect instead of being able to even sleep. There are times that I'll be up at night anxious about something that's happening the next day that I forgot to do, that I need to do, or deadlines that are coming up, and then it's like my body can't, or my mind can't like let it go. But I think that's why both of our feelings were pretty high, 8+s
Yeah.
on a scale. But I think that hopeful feeling is there, because it's like these are simple things to do, and they're not hard, and they're not like even like secrets. Like we know we need to do it, but I think like saying them out loud and expressing it to each other will help us
being like more intentional.
Yeah, and like will help us follow through with it.
I agree.
I know it can be really hard sometimes.
The typical, when I was doing marriage preparation back in the late 60s, early 70s, they said the typical couple spent 3 minutes about relationship with each other, and no talking about children or in-laws or anything at work or anything. They just talked about themselves. It was 3 minutes. Now it's underneath a minute. With all the stuff we have to help us, it's 59, 58 seconds, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm just playing with like, there's something like 86,400 seconds a day. And we give our spouse 59 seconds.
It's hard to talk about like just us. Like, I mean, like we talk about like the kids or about work. I mean, that's kind of a downfall of having the same career type, is that we're always like sharing things about work, for sure.
Yeah, and I think in a world where you're so connected with everything, you're so connected with people even across the globe, that it's easy to forget that people are right next to you. It's like you're at a wedding and everyone's on their phone trying to take a picture, and they're not in the moment. And you see all these wedding photos now with cameras everywhere and phones and people taking pictures, and then the professional photographer who's there, who probably has no interest in no emotional investment, no investment in it besides the fact they're paid to take photos at this wedding, isn't able to capture the moment fully, and the people living in the moment aren't capturing it fully. And it's like you miss out double time, all because people want to be more connected, and it almost makes them less connected.
I remember at times I've got very bold at baptisms, when about 5 people want to take pictures, of the baptism, but they don't experience the baptism of the child. They're trying to get the right side, or running around, and I'll just say, stop, take one picture right now, smile, have the baby, hold them now. Let's just experience the baptism as a community. And that's what you're there for anyway, but we get so caught into pictures that we miss the moment, and we miss, I was just thinking again, imagine if you did 1 minute a day, okay? And it's a total of 30 minutes a month that you spend on each other's relationship out of 4,320 hours, minutes. It's like, pardon me, Rosie, 30 minutes out of how many? 4,320. It's like, we'd be embarrassed, the priest doing the same, about his own relationship, if he's not involved in prayer or that kind of a moment. And the other part is that need to appreciate the people. I find it awfully hard. I want to make sure for Holy Saturday night, which is very, very long, and I have sometimes 20 up to the 39 people being brought into the church, and maybe at least 10 or 15, 20 baptisms. I want to make sure everything's all right, and I forget to experience them in the ceremony. And that's sad. I remember I was so worried about our nation making sure you did all the right steps. I couldn't remember very much about the ceremony that I was partaking in, like your marriage. And so I understand very well that the tension or the with the day, I guess one of the couples shared with me the last week or so is that how do we keep a balance? Both the Changs changed jobs the same week. and they said, what is our balance? What keeps our balance? That we don't get lost in all this busyness, and they have 2 kids besides. Anyway, it's just interesting to how we do that. And the key is what you're talking about, finding time for us and how you fight for that.
Yeah, I will say, public service announcement, like for the people who are trying to focus on mass, you're talking about being so focused on these other things that you miss the beauty of the mass. I know as parents with rambunctious kids at mass, anyone around us who feels like our kids are distracting them, we feel it probably 10 times more. I don't know how many masses I've been through where I'm like, I don't know if I remember anything that was said because I was so focused on trying to keep our kids' level of yelling and movement to as minimal as possible that everything just kind of went past me. And I would say that's the hardest thing as a parent is we're so focused on trying to make sure that our kids don't disrupt other people that oftentimes we miss things, or we focus on the looks of people and we misread the looks of people who turn and look back, and we take it as, oh, they're shooting angry glances because their kids are, and we really miss out on the beauty and the intimacy of mass and mass together as a family. I think that happens a lot, and I think service announcement, cut kids slack as much as you can at mass, and welcome them and say hello. The looks, even if they're supposed to be nice, without the words and without that interpersonal connection, they all tend to end up being perceived negatively, even if that wasn't what's intended.
Got you. I was just thinking of how sometimes if you're building your own relationship at home, for example, if you in middle, maybe at the dinner table when things go crazy, maybe at the very end, or maybe at the beginning. How can I say, Lord, help us to, between the two of you, how do we experience the present with your presence? How do we, some kind of a cue that you have a real saying that gets you back for at least for a couple minutes, may not last long, but something like, well, Lord, help me. And it's a trigger for both of you then to at least try to attempt what took place at the dinner table or the conversation. And same thing for the Eucharist. The meal around the table is the Eucharist in the little church. When I bless homes, I always bless the table. And then the one you use the most. Sometimes people have a living room or a dining room table, and that's used about once every 6 months. Whereas the kitchen table is used 6 times a day. Even just time to do homework, anytime just to catch up on conversation with each other, the kids, I sit down with them and say, we need to talk. But the table that I sat at, that's probably used 90% of the time. I don't know if we have a dining room table or not, it is what it is. No choice, but that's a sacred place. All the conversations that has taken place at that table, the tears that have been flowed and the angry moments of brothers and sisters fighting each other or getting mad at mom and dad, you go to your room, then forgiveness follows. How do we maybe after mass is finished in the car before you go home is what moment struck you as being special? And almost like because you have to harvest it because you have to find it because it's so, and maybe not be you, maybe be somebody else that tells you what they I remember that. Oh, you felt close to God at that moment. Holy, I was fearful, moments I think it would be interesting to do because many times it's the small blades of grass that give the most juice and nourishment to our hearts. And sometimes it takes the other person to harvest theirs before you get yours. I'll tell you my own sin one time. I was at a convocation of priests. There was 300 priests there. And the author of a book and the speaker, he was very renowned. I loved his book. It was fantastic. And I couldn't wait to hear him. Well, he gave a different approach, like a Thomas Aquinas approach, theologian, and he's, and after 10 minutes, I'm gone. I go, boo, boo, boo. I'm saying, who's here today? How many guys showed up? How many guys do I know of all these priests? I'm not checking off priest names and so forth, and he's going on and on and on. And I just got turned. I was loaded too much in my brain. Here I am with among all these priests. There's 8 priests at a table, 8 or 10. And he finishes his talk. For the last 40 minutes, I've been wandering around in my brain someplace else, okay? And all the priests stood up and applauded for like 5 minutes. Priests don't applaud for anybody unless you're God, it seems. I mean, they got to be so good, okay? I'm going, oh, Lord. So then they said, go to at your table, there's a facilitator. And he said, interesting, now go around your table and say, what about the talk? What line or two or phrase touched you? Got that? I was gone for the last 40, 50 minutes, okay? I'm going to look like a fool. Well, each person, beginning the guy next to me, started sharing. Each one spoke for 2 or 3 minutes. By the time it got all the way around the other 7 people, or 10, 8 people, 9 people, wherever it was, I tasted the talk through them. I can still quote you, take, bless, break, share. That was his heart of his talk. I didn't remember anything until they shared with me that. And that was the most sacred moment out of the hour and a half I was there for the talk. And nothing was from the talk itself directly. So often it's the witness to each other that gives you the real fruit of a meal that you harvest for a long time. That's been since the first convocation in 1984.
Wow.
It's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget it. I've used that for homilies. I can't tell you how many times. But it's a talk that I never heard. But I got it from the other guys.
Yeah.
And so that to me, those are special moments that you have in a relationship. If you harvest yours, John, or you, Zoe, even though it may be, for me, it's crazy, like, holy mackerel, all I thought of was Zeke doing this or PJ, what was going to happen? I'm going to go, ah. And Zoe says, I had a good mass today. How come you had a good one? I'm sure the people who are listening, not just watching, have the same kind of experience with each other, because then it's really sharing what feeds you and you feed each other. So I confess my sin that I told anybody since, but I told the people in the pews many times that, that sometimes you may be wandering around, your mind is so busy and you don't quite engage. The connection is not made, but somebody else will share with you, and all of a sudden it comes to you a different way.
Yes.
So, does that make any sense?
Yes.
But you have to go consciously do that, which is, let me know if you try it and see if it works.
Well, we'll try anything.
Especially before meals and maybe just before Mass. Spirit will help me to experience, and even ask the kids, pray this type of prayer that you have a special moment in your Mass. Yep, they'll probably share it with you. Mommy or daddy, maybe it's the funny look the person in front of gave you. How they say, I got him again. Got you.
Kids always shock us with things they soak up, and they probably have more insights than we realize they do.
Yes. Well, thank you, the audience and those who have listened to us. We thank you very much. Those who have YouTube, we continue to open the blades of grass and experience God's love each day. I'm so grateful for the guests we had today who shared willingly themselves in their dialogue. And thank you for joining us. I look forward to the next episode when I join you again once more.
This has been Marriage, Let's Talk, sponsored by Worldwide Marriage Encounter, the foremost faith-inspired marriage enrichment organization in the world, providing married couples with transformative experiences through couples retreats, small groups, and more. Learn to nurture love in your marriage at wwme.org. Marriage, Let's Talk is a production of Mater Media, the apostolate that offers the Celebrate Catholic Marriage experience to energize and fortify married couples through parish events and the 7-step journey to joy. Find out more at matermedia.org.